All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Without further ado, going to pass it off to Copia's Director of Product Marketing, Jerry Abbey.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry Abbey, Director of Product Marketing, as Joe just said. And I'm going to be kicking us off and then handing off to Nick Buckley, who's going to be digging into the demo today. So, quick overview of the agenda. This will be about 15-ish minutes. If we get a lot of questions, we'll go a little longer. But the focus of these lunch and learns is to really focus on the learn part and give you information quickly. For those unfamiliar with Copia, I'm just going to run through about 3 minutes, very high, fast level about Copia. If you have questions beyond this, we are happy to jump on a one-on-one and give you more information. So, quick high level of Copia. We are an industrial DevOps solution focusing on managing industrial code in the best possible way. And that includes Git-based source control and comprehensive backup and disaster recovery features for all of your industrial code and files. Who is Copia today? Those two things I just talked through. Source control, which also now has Copilot that we're going to be demoing today, which has numerous benefits, and I'm sure Nick will talk through those, including summarization, new code creation, Q&A, and interpretation, which we're going to touch on today. For our device link product, it works as a disaster recovery feature for backing up all of your files in a comprehensive way, and then giving you dashboards to understand what has been backed up, when it was backed up, when it was changed, who changed it. Really helpful for compliance and adhering to NIST 2 guidelines, your SOC 2 or ISO 27000, and other regulations that I haven't named or in the pipeline. So start off some of the foundation pieces around Copia is we've done research to see what the problems are out there. And as more and more technology comes into the operational technology space, you have a wider and wider surface area to oversee and control and operate in. And that's everything from making sure that you can maintain the highest amount of uptime to avoiding problems, whether it's from a fault in the code and you need to roll back quickly when you've done an update, or you have a bad actor coming in and trying to push through a ransomware attack. A very wide surface area. We have this data on devices from our respondents in the State of Industrial DevOps report. Whether you are large or small, 600 to 10,000 plus devices, it's a lot to keep track of. And when you bring Copia in, you can use best practices and apply them to your operational technology environment. We've recently released an updated report focused on workforce, and a couple cool things I just want to highlight from that. We took public data and tracked how industrial production has performed over the last couple decades, 5 decades. And while we have a ton of amazing technology today, we're seeing kind of a flatlining of industrial production, as you can see in the graph here. And we see that as a many-fold problem and pulled in a lot of outside research and our own research to unpack that problem and understand it in the context of the operational technology, manufacturing, and distribution space. Within that, we looked specifically at how employees are looking at employers and the workforce environment, what they are looking for, and how employers are looking at it as well. We focused a lot on people, process, and technology, especially in that order. If you had listened to our fireside chat with Rick Franzosa, he dug into that a lot, and it's really meaningful to think about. Technology can't do anything if you don't have the right people. You don't prep your people in the right way with skilling, training, upskilling, and then aligning on process so that you can maximize the impact of technology. There's a few slides in the final section of this report. I hope you'll check it out, talking about where people have found success, especially with industrial DevOps, to maximize that people, process, and technology equation. Also, it highlights AI and where that fits into the fold. So again, I hope you'll check it out. And right before I hand it off to Nick, I want to highlight that on April 1st at 12 Eastern, I'll be doing a partner webinar with Clarity, and we'll be talking through this white paper highlighted right here of how using Clarity and Copia can help fortify your operational technology space and help modernize your approach to future-proof your organization moving forward. And with that, thank you very much for letting me go through that stuff, and I'm going to hand it off to Nick.
Thanks, Jerry, and hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm going to take over screen sharing here.
Perfect. And I'll plug one more time. Please ask questions as Nick goes through. I'm going to monitor the chat, and we can address those live.
Perfect. So, hey, everybody. My name is Nick Buckley. I am a technical product manager here at Copia, covering our vendor integrations team as well as Copilot. The purpose of today's seminar is not to give a holistic overview of Copilot and its capabilities, but for those who have no familiarity with Copilot, I'll spend just a couple seconds talking about it at a high level. So Copilot is Copia's, excuse me, Copilot is Copia's new LLM generative AI chatbot tool that allows our users to do a number of powerful workflows and interactions with today Rockwell Studio 5000 projects. That includes code interpretation, question and answer, documentation, and even code generation. And in today's demo, we'll see a smattering of those different capabilities. So specifically, what we're going to cover today is using Copilot to identify and fix bugs in PLC code, and just asking it to give us explanations of code. So to set the scene before I start showing the demonstration, in this example, I want you to imagine that you, as an engineer, have a machine, whether it's in your facility or if it's at an end user's facility, that you've gotten a service call for because the sequence is getting stuck at a specific part. And you, as the engineer or the technician, don't have any familiarity with the machine. It's your first time looking at it, and you don't really have the background. Maybe the original engineer, is no longer with the company, unavailable to fix it. There could be a number of reasons, but this happens quite often. And I should have also mentioned my experience before Copia was as a controls engineer. So I've been in this situation myself more times than I care to admit. So first, let's take a look at the code that we're going to be troubleshooting in this scenario here. So again, if you're not familiar with Copia, one of the capabilities that we have is allowing our users to put in their native PLC projects, in this case, a Rockwell project, and visualize them in a web browser. So in this case, we'll look at this sequence for this conveyor station program. At a high level, I can kind of explain to you what's happening here, but we're going to ask Copilot as well. But essentially, what this is responsible for is loading pies onto a conveyor, letting them cool, and then offloading them on there. And in this example, I've set this up such that it's possible that we could get into an infinite loop here. So this is a little bit of foreshadowing. But there are some issues with this code. And specifically, I'm going to be asking Copilot, why is the pie getting stuck on the conveyor when it's cooling down? That's what I've been told by the end user or the team on the floor, and that's all the information I have to go on. So first things first, I'm going to go into the Copilot interface. So this should look relatively familiar to you if you've used any of the LLM chatbots out there, like Copilot. It's a chat interface. And the unique part with Copia, or one of them at least, is that we integrate directly with our repositories. So as a user of Copia, you can version control your files. And so what I've done here is I've gone ahead to that repository for the project I just showed you and selected the sequence that I am going to ask some questions about. So this is just going to give the Copilot the context so it knows what I'm asking about. So first things first, I'm just going to ask, like, can you give me a high-level overview of what this routine does and is responsible for? Because remember, I'm coming into this blind in this example. So I'll first ask this, and in a second here, we should start to see the responses stream in. We can see that it's identified the name of it. It's telling me that it's responsible for controlling the operation of the conveyor system in a pie manufacturing process. And then it goes into breakdown the main function. So it says that it starts with the run button, stop with the stop button. That's good for me to know as I start to troubleshoot this. It explains the sequence steps and breaks them down into a list. And, just some additional information about error handling and the completion of it. Okay, so now I'm up to speed. I know kind of what this routine is supposed to do. And next, I'm going to ask specifically, using that piece of information that I've been given, that it's stuck at that specific step, I'm going to ask Copilot what it thinks could possibly be the cause of that issue. And just so you don't have to see me type a few sentences out, I'm going to copy and paste the next prompt in. So you can just see that I'm asking, it's getting stuck at the step where the pie is cooling down. You'll notice that I don't need to specify an individual number. So again, that's great if I don't know the code, but I know the information about the actual process. And then I'm asking it, can you just analyze it and suggest what might be causing the behavior? And then I say, just explain it to me before we start making modifications. So I'll send that out. And while this is going, it's important to know that it's true of Copia's Copilot and other LLM tools. These, you always need to check the outputs of them. They're never going to be 100% accurate. But what we are trying to kind of instill in our users who are using Copilot here is that, habit of first asking Copilot as a first step, because it's very low effort. And even if, 1 in 3 times it gives you a helpful answer, that's 1 in 3 times that you don't need to have a service call with a vendor or take the time of maybe a more senior engineer to answer the question. So we'll look at this. I won't read through it line by line, but we'll see here that it calls out specifically. It identified that rung 3 and rung 4 are probably the roots of this problem. And you remember, I did not call out those specifically. I just said in plain English, like, it's the step where the pie is supposed to cool down. And then we see here that it's saying, potential issues that could be causing this. Timer reset. And this is saying that the temperature is still high. The full cooling time will just be repeated and go into an indefinite loop, which if we go back to that code, that is true. We will go through an infinite, it'll be a infinite loop of going through back and forth if the temperature was left high. So that could happen from a faulty sensor or something else. It also gives a couple other suggestions. It even calls out where there's an exact temperature comparison, talking about the less than or equal to, changing it to a less than, so catching an edge case there. And then finally, it's going to tell us how we could address these issues. So it's telling we could, remove the timer reset, and let's see, a couple others. And the one that I really want to focus on is this one, where it calls out, consider adding a maximum cooling time or a maximum number of cooling cycles. As an engineer, that's probably what I would do in this case. Granted, I'd first be looking at that temperature sensor. But in the meantime, I don't want this to get stuck. I'd rather have an alarm on that condition. So I'm going to copy and paste the prompt. So you don't have to watch me type. And what I'm going to ask it to do now is actually make those changes for me. Granted, I could just take the information I've seen here, go into my IDE, and make those modifications myself, but this will be a good demonstration of the Copilot's code generation capabilities. So now I'm going to ask it to, can you modify this routine by implementing suggestion number 4, where it's suggesting to implement a maximum number of cooling cycles. And I'm just saying if the maximum number is exceeded, I want it to trigger an alarm by setting a specific tag that I already have that is defined as the alarm tag. So we'll send this one out. This one should take a little bit longer because it's actually going to generate all of the code for us to see. And once this finishes up, the result of this is that I could either make the changes again just manually in the IDE. I could copy and paste the actual neutral text from this output, we'll see here in just a second, into the IDE, or I could even download the L5X file to import into my IDE. So we'll see it's starting the output, and it's almost done here now. And we're finished. Okay. So we see that it's telling us that it's gonna modify that routine and add a counter and then set that alarm. So we'll go down to that rung now. And now we can see that there is logic here where it will increment a counter. It even it added a new tag, DI for digital double integer, cool cycles. And then there's a check that says, if it's exceeded 5, I want to set my station alarmed tag that I had specified. So now, at the conclusion of this, like I mentioned, very quickly, I was able to, without even need to interact with the machine live, have Copilot give me suggestions on what could be the issue here, and actually make those changes itself for me, so I could implement them. And then, as I mentioned too, I could actually even just take that neutral text right here, copy it to my clipboard, and paste it into the IDE, should I want to do that. So that's the end of the demo. Are there any questions?
Not seeing any questions come in yet, but I have one I can ask while we wait,
Yeah.
see if any come in. Think a lot during these about the use cases, and you mentioned 2 there, Nick, as you were introducing it. Could you talk about any others you've seen coming up? And I'm thinking a lot about workforce after doing all the research on this workforce report. So it seems like this is really beneficial for the changes that we're undergoing.
Yeah, good question. So the other, as I mentioned, some other use cases that we've seen people get a lot of value out of are documentation. So I think this is pretty common in the industry, and from what we've heard from our customers and from my own experience, is that PLC code is oftentimes not documented well, maybe not documented at all. And so what we've seen customers do, and could even help in this exact scenario, is use Copilot to actually have a document generated, a nicely formatted document that says, here's what the sequence does, or this AOI, whatever it is you're wanting to document, and have that version controlled within Copia. So that's actually even a resource that you could go to first in this case. You could even skip the step of asking, because that there is a document that someone has looked at and says, here's what this is supposed to do, and here's the expected behavior.
Thank you. We did get a question that just came in.
Okay.
Do these features work well with Siemens also S7 1200, S7 1500 specifically?
Good question. The answer is not today. Copilot is starting off with Rockwell Studio 5000 projects only at this time. With that said, Copia is a vendor agnostic platform. So our ultimate plan and future goals are to expand it to other vendors that we have in our portfolio. And I can say with pretty good confidence that Siemens, being a very popular platform, globally and for our customers, is very likely going to be the next vendor integration that we pick up.
Thanks, then. And any other questions? If not, we can stop here. Going once, going twice. All right, so I think we're going to stop here. I want to say thank you to our audience for joining. Really appreciate having you here. If you have other questions about Copilot, please reach out. If you have other questions about Copia, please reach out. You can also visit our YouTube channel, which has all the recordings from the past Lunch and Learns and other content that can help you learn about Copia if you're interested in checking it out. And thank you, Nick, for presenting today.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for joining.
Have a great weekend, everyone.